Welcome to the Heart of Dad podcast. Heart of Dad is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are passionate about their families and business and looking to find more clarity, more balance and more alignment in all areas of their life. Come and join the community at heartofdad.com or on Facebook at groups/Heart of Dad. This week on the Heart of Dad, I'm delighted to introduce Giles Croft. Giles is a psychology graduate and former NHS surgeon who spent more than a decade exploring a number of career paths, including healthcare information management, cycling journalism, public speaking, and opening a high street shop with his wife. His curiosity about the human condition led him to coaching and a deeper dive into how our psychology works from the inside out. He now works with clients to help them resolve stress-related conditions without recourse to medication. His greatest teacher is his 5-year-old daughter, Rhonwen. So I'm delighted to introduce Giles to the Heart of Dad podcast this week. Giles, tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh, hi. Yes, well, I'm a dad of 5 years. I'm coming up to 6 years. I've got one daughter, and I background is I was a doctor in the NHS. I worked as a surgeon. I left about 15 years ago and went off to do various different things, lots of different career changes, and sort of have come full circle via coaching back to the healing profession again. And I work with people to help them with stress and stress-related issues, be they emotional or physical. And I do that working from my home office. I have rented out space elsewhere previously, but these days I'm either working in my office here doing video calls with people, or I live in Abergavenny on the edge of the Brecon Beacons, and I do a lot of my coaching outdoors. So I'm either in front of the computer or I'm out walking with clients.
Brilliant. And I know you've given us a very admirably short version of your career there, but from what I know of you, you've had some really interesting twists and turns in what you've done since leaving the NHS. I'm sure people will be interested to hear a little bit more about that if you're up for it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I started when I first left. I had a real interest in the way that we were managing or mismanaging, as the case was, information in the health service, and I kind of reached a sort of a balance point where the desire to carry on clinically was going down, and the desire to do something a bit more impactful for the service as a whole was increasing, and sort of fitted in with the values that had evolved as the years had gone by. I mean, it took me years of working for the biggest establishment in the UK to realise I had a massive anti-establishment streak, which I was unaware of. So I moved kind of sideways into healthcare information management, which was a fascinating new world for me, because I'd had a very kind of traditional education and upbringing, and then when you make the decision to go into medicine, it's around the time of GCSEs, really, isn't it? So it was all fairly standard stuff up to then. And then all of a sudden, I was in the real world, as it were, in the big wide world. That was quite a journey, and I'd always had a real interest in what made people tick, and I did a psychology degree as part of my medical training, and it took some time out to do that, and had always reflected on the process of career change, what it was that enabled things to happen, and the kind of like the personal change that you have to go through, and so I just kind of like started playing with that, really. It's like, well, hang on a minute, I've got into this one career that you shouldn't really be able to get into. It wasn't really a thing. There was no defined career path. So then I started pushing it a little bit further, just really latching on to the things that I really enjoyed and just doing more of those and seeing what happened. And then I ended up working for my favourite cycling magazine as a features writer and medical advisor. So then I started talking about that process of career change, and I guess that's what led me to one-on-one work with clients.
Brilliant! I love that story. There's so much in it. And so, where were you in career terms, like 5 years ago when you had your daughter?
Yeah, yeah. I was a bit in the doldrums. I think these things, as we evolve and our needs and our values, I think they're constantly, slowly but surely evolving. I'd got to a point where I wasn't happy doing the work that I was doing. I was basically had my own. I was working for myself, doing healthcare IT work, which started off with a real passion for making a change in the service, making the life of clinicians and patients alike better. And as the years had gone by, I found myself just feeding the corporate beast, really. So all the kind of like all the design work that I was doing was just for submission for central data. So the work itself wasn't all that inspiring. I knew I had other things I wanted to do as well. So every year I was still talking at conferences about career change. But every year I felt a bit more of a fraud doing that because I wasn't really walking the walk. And into that came our daughter. And now I look back, it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. It was perfect because if now I can see what I've been through in the last 18 months, setting up a new coaching business, the idea of doing that with a brand new baby is just like, what? And yeah, I was a bit miserable about the work that I was doing. I just wasn't inspiring at all to me then. But that meant that my energy had to go somewhere. I was working from home doing work that I could have done with my arm tied behind my back. Perfect. There I was. And my wife's self-employed too. We have a shop. So she's got her own shop. And this meant that, we were like 50-50. It was brilliant. And I have I'd like to think I've got a phenomenal relationship with my daughter, in part because I was, I've just always been there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I left my permanent job 3 months after my son was born, and did go through the madness of starting up my what was a therapy practice at the time.
Bravo.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a story around denial and running away from the reality of having a child in your 40s that landed on me in a way that was quite dramatic. That's another story for another time. But I'm really interested for you that that in a sense the opportunity came out of the ambivalence you had with your job to actually spend more time with your daughter. And there's been a benefit from that.
Yeah.
Because a big topic, I suppose, for these podcasts has been we're skirting around the theme of balance. And for some people, that idea of work and life balance is completely anathema. They say, well, there's no such thing, and it's continually fluid. Some people talk about it as work-life integration. I just wanted to know where you stood on it. What does it mean to you, or is it a term that resonates, or not?
I think back when I had a proper job, it was more of a thing because I was physically going to a place and I was physically doing a job, and then so I had very clear work time and non-work time. And one of the main impetus behind leaving medicine was the idea that the work-life balance didn't fit me, wasn't right for me. I could see I had a whole load of outside interests and they were all sort of withering on the vine, because, you know, understandably, if you're going to be an orthopedic surgeon, you've got to commit to it 100%. And that, you know, that was fine. That was what I'd signed up for. But I could just see that stretching ahead. It's like, okay, work-life balance there. Whereas now, no, I don't. Hearing you say that is the first time that the concept has even entered into my consciousness for quite some time, because you know, we can only really do one thing at a time. If I'm focused on doing some work, I'm focused on doing some work. If I'm with my daughter, I'm with my daughter. I don't try and juggle. It doesn't fit for me. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to juggle the two. I suppose I set fairly clear boundaries. I've got my office. I've got a little sign that I put on my door, which is on my door right now, which means I'm on a call. And so when I'm on a call, there's no knocking on the door, there's no coming in, there's minimal noise. But obviously, you know, she's 5. It's not like I can really control that. But if you know, there'll be somebody else with her. It's not. I don't have calls when I don't schedule calls when it's just me and her. And that seems to work. I've done that since day one, and she's, you know, she respects that, and she asks me all about it, and, you know, what, you know, did you have a good call, Daddy? That kind of stuff. And then when I'm with her, you know, if that means I'm dressing up as whatever it is, and or we're sat there playing top trumps or Connect 4 or something, then I'm not on my phone, and you know, I'm not taking phone calls. And so,
does that come easily to you, that really being present with her?
Yeah, because it's nice. It's like, well, this is a not work moment, and I don't fight it. I don't fight it. There'll be times when I'm sat at my desk. So, for instance, on because of the shop opening hours, Saturday is a Daddy and Rhonwen day. Rhonwen is my daughter, and certainly now I'm building my own business. Work can leach into the weekend, so I will sometimes find myself doing some work. Now, I will have my office door open, and I'll be getting on with stuff, and she'll be playing, and then she'll come through, and I know that, you know, when she comes through, it's time. If I'm in the middle of something, I'll be completely honest with her, and I'll say, I'm in the middle of something right now, you know, can it wait? Now, if she's really persistent and she just literally just climbs up into my lap and sits there, it's like, okay, the work is over, you know, it's time to shift my focus to my daughter. And there's something about, for me, just the experience I've only got the one kid, so I've only got the one experience, but she seems to get what she needs in a remarkably short period of time. You know, it's like 10 minutes of craziness, 10 minutes of something physical, or 10 minutes of just chat or anything. And I'm not the one who stops that. I let her guide that usually. So she'll, you know, like wander off again, or it'll be time for a meal or something like that. And so yeah, it seems to flow fairly.
Sounds a great way of handling it, because some of I certainly identify with moments like that in my own parenting story, but I know there have also been times when I've got very excited, should we say, by a project I'm working on, or a piece of work, and I feel really in the flow of something, and then those interruptions feel incredibly unwelcome, I would say. I don't have that natural flexibility that you're beautifully describing to sort of just down tools with an open heart and draw my attention that way. Actually, sometimes I can feel quite resentful.
Only through trial and error, Matt. Only because, you know, I've been in those situations before, and I've tried to push on through, and it just doesn't work.
That's
like
why comes back to bite you, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, like I say, it was just the experience of 100% laser focus on her and getting into her world and giving her what she needs, then she gets what she needs way quicker than you'd imagine. Way quicker than you'd imagine. And
it's a brilliant message for other dads out there to hear. So we met in the context of learning a new understanding about how psychology works and the truth of human nature, called the 3 principles or insight principles. I'm just wondering how that's impacted you as a parent and what's happening through your journey.
Massively.
Mm-hmm.
It's and I think Rhonwen's been such an integral part of my journey, which has been wonderful. It was in an interaction with her that I had one of my biggest insights, and I know it sounds cheesy and you hear it, and I'll tell you what, I'd been reading it and I'd been hearing it for years, is look to children for the answers, because they have become more childlike, not childish, but childlike. I remember that back from my old personal development days, like 15 years ago or something. That really stuck with me. Try and be more childlike than childish. And I never really got it, I don't think. And until I started looking into this understanding of the way that we work, and there it is on display for all to see. Children are so much closer to it than to their true nature than we are, because they don't get caught up in their thinking and they just live from moment to moment. And
would you be willing to share that insight? What was it that gave you that moment?
Yeah. So Rhonwen very much enjoys ballet, so she's in and out of her ballet shoes all the time, and it was a Thursday, like today, which meant she was off to ballet later on in the day, and it's Thursday is a daddy day, so I take her to ballet, and she'd lost a ballet shoe, and so like World War III had broken out. This was like early in the morning, caterwauling, and the world was ending, and me and my wife were running around like headless chickens trying to find this damn ballet shoe, and we couldn't find it anywhere. And she was absolutely inconsolable. And then my wife had to go down to the shop, and Rhonwen just got fed up eventually and just started doing something else. There's a lesson. And I carried on, knowing better, actually knowing I was going to have to face this again later on in the day. I carried on looking. In the end, even I just gave up, and it's like, well, I'll find it or I won't find it, and I'll just have to deal with it. So I went to my desk and I started working, and I've been working for 10 minutes or so, and Rhonwen was in the next room, and it was just the two of us in the house. And she shouted for me or something, and I turned around, and the different perspective that I had from sitting at my desk and turning round, I saw the ballet shoe. It was like rammed underneath the coffee table in my office or something. I was like, oh, brilliant. And I thought, oh, well, let's have some fun with this. Let's see how many daddy points I can score here. So I thought, I'll make a really big deal. I'll do a big grand reveal. So I went into her room with the ballet shoe behind my back, and she was sat on the floor in the doorway, and she was building a little Duplo tower for her toys. And I got down at her level. I crouched down right in front of her, and I did the big reveal. And I brought the ballet shoe out from behind my back, and I said, oh, look what I found. And she looked up, kind of gave me a bit of a smile, and said, oh, you found my ballet shoe. And she went back to playing with a Duplo. And my world sort of came crashing down about me, and I was overcome with this flood of emotions. So disappointment, a bit of anger, why do I even bother, resentment, I really strong feelings. And it was in that moment that I had an insight, because previously, and I'm sure other parents can relate to this, there are about 3 ways that I might have dealt with that situation in the past. The first one would have been to have said something really sarcastic to her, to a 4-year-old, which would have made me feel better for a microsecond before realizing what an awful parent I was. But I have done that in the past. I'm put my hand up there. I've been. But the other thing that I might have done would have been to have given her a bit of a lecture. Just a bit of gentle education. Bit of, well, this is what gratitude is, and I've been looking around for ages, and it's when people do things for you, because we all know how important gratitude is. So I might have done that again. In retrospect, she's 4. How much of that would have actually gone in? It's like, there I am programming her. There I am, messing with her head. And all right, so when Daddy does this, I've got to do that to keep Daddy happy. And so it begins. I've done that, definitely. What I suppose I would have done, thinking of myself as a good dad, maybe, is bitten my tongue. I'd have bottled that. I'd have like, oh, gosh, that didn't turn out how I expected it to. What does that mean? Oh man, what does that mean about my parenting skills? What does that mean about my expectations? What does that mean about me as a father? That didn't work. That didn't happen how I wanted it to. Is that me or is that her? There would have been a lot of thinking about that. A lot of thinking. And it was me and her in the house, and I had housework to do. I'd have been doing like the loading the dishwasher or whatever, and I'd have been thinking about that. I'd have been ruminating on it, just turning it over in my head. This time, out of nowhere, I'd been reading all about the inside out understanding, the 3 principles, and which is pointing to the way that we experience our life through thought in any given moment. That's pretty much all that's happening. Is we've got data pouring in through our senses, and this little image of what's going on is being created inside of us, and that's what we're feeling. And exactly the same situation happened. I felt the exact same emotions, and then completely out of the blue, all of a sudden, I had this massive light bulb moment. Those feelings aren't coming from my daughter. Those feelings aren't coming from what she did or what she didn't do. And they're coming from my thinking. And before I'd even had chance to really sort of examine what that thinking might even be or anything, it just all fell away. Like it all completely fell away. And I think realistically, for the first time in my life, I experienced a quiet mind, a properly quiet mind, because it was the strangest sensation. In fact, that was the first thought that came into the space was, ooh, this is a bit weird. This is what they've been talking about. This is what it feels like to not have any thinking going on. And into that space, I'd got no idea about the timescale of this, because time just in that moment just stretched out. But into that space of quietness was quickly followed another insight. And that was, oh, she gets it. She gets it. She's a little living in the moment machine. Her response to me when I showed her that ballet shoe was entirely appropriate. I had the little smile. There's your gratitude, Giles. And she stated a fact. You found my ballet shoe. But she's not bothered about what happened in the past. Why on earth would she hold on to that feeling? What possible use does that hold? She's not worried about the future. She knows Dad will sort it out. If I'd asked her, you know, what you're doing later, I'm going to ballet, she'd know, but she's certainly not going to be thinking about it. No, in that moment, what was most important to her was that Duplo tower. And so the fact that I'm banging on about ballet shoes instead of, hey, I like your Duplo tower, and just that realization, just so many bits of the jigsaw seemed to fall into place for me. And I felt more connected to my daughter than I've ever felt before, you know. took 4 years. And all of a sudden, I really felt like I understood her, like I saw the world through her eyes, because there was nothing in the way of that connection. She certainly wasn't thinking. She was busy doing Duplo Towers.
Mm.
And so, yeah, she really has been a very, very integral part to my journey. And it's a constant reminder just watching her behaviour.
Yeah. Such a beautiful story, because sends shivers down my spine listening to that story. I think it's such a beautiful one, and so simple and powerful about how this understanding can really utterly shift your perspective of life and deepen your connection at the same time. It brought to mind, I don't know if you'd be willing to share this story, but I think you had when I read it, I thought this was just a fantastic kind of counterpoint, and that was when Rhonwen was having one of her waking nights, and you went to comfort her, and it was quite an ordeal along the way, but in the end.
Yeah. So I suppose having learned a bit more about how our psychology works, and having seen that for myself, and now really seeing in her, it's a lot easier. As a parent, I worry less, if because I think in the past I might have tried to help her to stop feeling the way that she was feeling, because I would label emotions as good emotions or bad emotions, whereas now I'm far more aware that it's just thought passing through the system, and it will flush itself out as long as we don't hold on to it. And so it's very easy and there are tons of kids books about the inside out understanding, and we've read a few, and she's got a little snow globe, because this is what our thinking's like. We get all shook up, and for as long as we're shook up, for as long as we are shaking that snow globe by adding layer of thought after thought after thought after, oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this, oh, I want to change this, instead of just letting it, just doing nothing and letting it go. So she's got a little snow globe, and yeah, she was really upset in the night, and she came out of the room. And again, in the past, I mean, I don't like being woken up in the middle of the night. Thanks very much. It was one of the real bonuses of leaving acute medicine. was that was one thing that I realised when a child came along. It's like, oh, I remember I used to feel like this, when I was on call. So I'm not in the best of moods. But I just know these days that like there's literally one thing going on. She's caught up in her thinking, and it will settle. And my job is to be there with her while that happens, and reassure her that whatever dream she's had, or whatever thinking that she's got going on about, oh, I need daddy there to get back to sleep, that's just thought, and she's all shook up. And every time she was shaking the globe, she'd settle a little bit, and then she'd come back to it again, and she'd settle a bit, and then she'd come back to it again, and then eventually she really calmed down. And I thought, oh, great, I'm going back to bed at long last. And she said, she started kicking off again. And she went, but daddy, it's not fair. And I just picked up it. I didn't think about it. I just picked up the snow globe. I was so half asleep, and I just shook the snow globe again. And I said, yeah. And that thought, Rhonwen, that it's not fair, is just exactly the same as all the others. And there was just something in that moment where her little brain had an insight, and she just kind of went a bit glassy eyed and went, "No, night, daddy." And that was it. It's because it's how we're made. We all have this capacity for these moments of seeing through the illusion, of seeing how it works, of seeing that we're living in this thought created reality, and that's what we feel moment to moment. And it's when we fall out of that we come back to our common sense and just getting on with life, really.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, I think I love both the stories you've shared, and they certainly resonate with my experience of parenting, which I think has been transformed also by this understanding of how we work. There are times when I fall out of that understanding, and I can get really cross about something that afterwards seems utterly trivial. Like,
Oh,
the other night, my son got a train set for Christmas, and he was involved in some really elaborate parking ritual that he has for getting his engine parked in the right siding and his carriages somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
And this was dragging on and on and on. And there's some point where we were getting into sort of really late. It was going to be a really late bedtime. I didn't lose it, but I got frustrated. And I said, look, just we're going to just park it now, turn it off, and you can play with it again in the morning. And things escalated between us very quickly, as they do sometimes. And then suddenly it looked totally to me like it was his behaviour that was creating all my angst. His slowness at parking his trains, his insistence on this being in the exact spot and that being in that spot, and for me that just felt deeply frustrating. Like I just wanted to get him to bed and had some other things that I wanted to do. So real attachment to things being a certain way, and of course they weren't. So I was kind of in a lot of distress. And I just wonder if that resonates for you in some way. What happens when you get
sounds pretty much like every bedtime. Yeah, totally. I have good bedtimes, and I have terrible bedtimes, and I think the difference is now that I don't really take them seriously, and I've got a very low tolerance to the and I'm doing inverted commas here, bad feelings, because I'm aware of what they're telling me. I'm a lot more aware of what they're telling me, and it's like a little inbuilt alarm system that I've got. So if I am feeling hugely frustrated, it won't be long until that I see that for what it is, which is the alarm system. I might not be able to do anything about it, but at least I can kind of like stop making it worse, stop going further down that track. It's like, oh, hang on a minute, that something new, something fresh is required here. And for me, and you and I have been, we've been through the same training. There's that moment of calibration, which to all intents and purposes is listening.
Yeah.
And so if she's kicking off, it's because I'm not listening. Simple as that. I'm not listening. And so no matter what kind of state I'm in, no matter what kind of state she's in, I will commit to listening. It's like, okay, I'm never going to do any harm by listening. And, sometimes I'll hear something about what she actually needs in that moment. Or I'll settle myself to the degree by, because if you're really, really listening to someone, you're not really invested in your own personal thinking. And that will, again, allow that space for something fresh and new to come through. And I'll have one of those daddy ideas, the ideas that come out of nowhere, the ideas of, oh, hey, I got an idea, or hey, do you want to make a deal? That kind of thing that just comes out of the ether. That can't come out of the ether when I'm frustrated, because frustration is a whole bunch of personal thinking. Frustration is being lost in it. So I try, to the best of my ability. Yeah. And I sometimes pass and I sometimes fail, and I don't beat myself up about the failures.
I love that realness about it, because I think so much of modern psychology can point towards an idea that there's a perfect state to be reached. There's a cure or a fixedness, and what we're talking about looks in a completely opposite direction. It kind of completely accepts that experience is what it is, that there's no pathologizing your experience. You can have tough moments, but that awareness of kind of seeing into what's happening is what brings the transformation in that moment, doesn't it? That fresh thinking, as you call it.
Yeah, we're like those the old wheat. You're old enough to remember Weebles, aren't you? Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. We're just like that, you know.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
get buffeted around, but we always right ourselves. We're, you know, my medical training has taught me that the human body is this homeostatic mechanism. It's just we are walking, talking homeostasis. Everything is always coming back into balance all the time, whatever's going on right now. You know, your liver, your lungs, your pancreas, your heart, everything is wanting to come back to a stable state, and that includes our psychology. So when we get shook up, we keep our fingers out of the machinery, it blows through, and we settle.
perfectly said. Just a brief change of tack, Giles, which is something I've been asking all the dads on the podcast, is around their ideas of personal freedom. It kind of connects in part something I was talking about earlier, which is kind of coming into fatherhood and having to recalibrate life. You know, my ideas of how life might be in my time and the space to do things kind of shifted massively in some expected ways and many unexpected ways. And I'm wondering what your experience 5 years down the line has been of how life has changed for you, and whether you see that as even a question. You said, like, work-life balance doesn't even cross your mind these days. Well, what about personal space and freedom?
Yeah, there are there are definitely times when I just want to be alone. You know, I'd always I've never had a problem being on my own. Let's put it that way. I mean, I once spent 4 months cycling to Turkey and back again on my own, which I thoroughly enjoyed at times. So I very much enjoy my own company, and there are times when I've had a a busy day, either of coaching calls or being with clients or just working on the business, which in a way is almost another relationship that you have, isn't it? The business. So it's and from the outside, somebody could look in and say, well, Giles, hang on a minute, you've been on your own all day long. Why do you need to be on your own now? It's like, well, I've not really been on. I've been with the business, you know. It's not really personal space per se. So yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that that my wife is very, very understanding. She knows me very well. She will tell me to go out on a bike or, you know, go for a walk or something, because I sometimes lose sight in this busy, hectic, bringing up a small child, running a business. It is very easy to overlook, because the voice of wisdom is quite quiet sometimes, isn't it? And you've got the voice of wisdom speaking to you about your family, and you've got the voice of wisdom speaking to you about your business, and then it's very, very easy to overlook the voice of wisdom about yourself. So yeah, there is and maybe that is the work-life balance. Maybe that's where I don't see it as much as I should do. Too busy recording podcasts instead of actually just going out for a walk on my own, being quiet with myself.
Yeah. I think it's such a great point. And I certainly come from a family where busyness was the default setting. You know, kind of, you weren't really allowed downtime. When I was growing up, you know, it was all go all the time. And both my parents were frenetic and still are, even in their old age, in being active. And so I think my default mechanism can be to fall back into to be busy. Even though I know actually there is a whispering. I love the way you described it, a whispering, which actually is to find a quiet space to withdraw and recharge. But I also really value my own time, and find that I struggle sometimes in having a young family. But you know, there's that I love what you were describing earlier about Rhonwen coming in, sitting on your lap. There's a sort of puppyishness about small children. You know, they're always on. My son is always running. I don't know about your daughter, but you know, he's always
dancing and singing.
Yeah, so that's it. You know, there's never a static moment really, and that's quite difficult to reconcile sometimes as as a dad who likes to have some peace and quiet.
Yeah. Well, you could always park her in front of a Star Wars film.
Okay, right, noted.
Is that babysitter? Yeah. No, I mean, we try and keep that to a minimum. But I mean, I have that experience myself where I know there are times when I just need to veg. I just need to be fed entertainment because I've been thinking so much about this and that and the other, and I just want to switch off. And we all do this to a certain extent. So I know that sometimes I just want to sit in front of the TV. And so seeing that in myself and not beating myself up about that again makes it easier for, well, hang on, and this poor little human being has been at school, like trying to work out all these social situations and everything. Her poor brain must be going into meltdown. The last thing she needs to do is sit and start getting actively using her brain creatively for something. Maybe she needs to just veg out for half an hour as well. So again, it's balance, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And looking back over your time, running your own business now and having a child, is there anything that you would change?
I do. Nothing immediately springs to mind. I don't know. Give me some suggestions. What would you change?
I have a pre-prepared list, which I shall be.
Yeah. I've been watching you closely, Giles, and I think you should be doing this, that, and the
other. It only extends to 3 volumes so far today.
No, I don't know. It's like having gone through all those career changes and stuff, and having left medicine, one of the questions that I get asked so often is, don't you regret that all the training that you went through and then leaving it? It's like, well, no, because that is all made me who I am today. That's all part of me. So if I mean, I suppose I could wish my life away thinking, oh, well, I wish I'd come across the understanding a little bit sooner, so that some of the earlier years with her, I wasn't stood there yelling at her in the middle of the night. That wasn't helpful for me, and it wasn't helpful for her. But yeah, what are you going to do? It is what it is, isn't it?
It is what it is. I think that's one of the kind of the themes of today's chat with you has been really, I don't know if equanimity is the right word for it, but there's a sense of real acceptance of life as it comes to you, and that comes with a really lovely peaceful quality when I'm speaking with you as well. I think people hopefully listening to the podcast will get a sense of that from you as well, because it's a really life can feel very effortful for some people. It has done for me at times in my life, and that's not to say that it shouldn't, but when I'm sitting with you and we're talking about this, it's like there's so much weight off your shoulders in how you see your life right now and how you see parenting. It's just it's lovely to have that sort of experience of that with you. Must be.
Thanks. It's a wonderful adventure.
I've loved this chat, Giles. Thanks so much. If people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
You can head over to my website, gilespcroft.com. There are links there to fairly active on Facebook. Again, you can look up Giles P. Croft and Twitter as well. Those seem to be the 2 places I hang out the most.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for taking time to...
Thanks so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome.